All right, so the next thing that we want to do is we want to create this animation. Notice how we've got all of the characters in our title label appear one by one, and it looks almost like we've got this typing animation, right? So how can we create this? Well, we'll need the help of something called a loop. In our welcome view controller, which is this screen right here, the first one that the user sees. At the moment, we've got a title label that's linked up to an IB outlet, and the title label just says these words statically. So it's a emoji of a lightning symbol, which gets treated pretty much the same as just any other letter. And then it's got the word flash chat. So how can we turn that title label text into something that looks like the animation that you saw earlier on? Well, we can create a loop right here in the view.did.load. Let's say that I had an array of items, right? Let's say I had a fruit basket. And inside this fruit basket, I've got an array of fruits. So I've got apple, pear, orange. So I've got 3 fruits in this array of fruits, and I can use a Swift for loop, which basically just looks like this. For fruit in fruit basket, print fruit. So in this case, what's happening is I'm looping through this array of fruits right here, and for every single item inside this array, so this one and then this one and this one, each of them are going to get printed into the console. So if we run our app right now, you can see that in sequence of how they were added in the array, they're getting printed. So what these 3 lines of code does is it looks inside this array, and for every single item, it's going to trigger this code. Now, we don't have to limit ourselves to arrays. We can also do the same with text. So let's say that we had something called title text, and I'm going to set it to equal the same string as you have inside the title label. So we've got this piece of text, which is a string that says this, and I want to print out every single character in this string. Well, I can do the same thing as I did before. So I can say for letter in title text, go ahead and print each of these letters. So now if I hit run, what you'll see is that it now separates out each of these characters in my string, and it prints them out one by one. So the important thing to remember is that the code in here, in between the curly braces of the for loop, gets run for as many times as there are letters in the title text. So if we had other code in here, they're also going to be run each time we get to a different letter. Now you can see we're getting kind of closer to our end goal, right? Because we're able to separate out each of these characters. And all we need to do is to simply start out by emptying out our title label. So we say title label.text equals an empty string, and then we're going to add in each letter in the for loop. So we'll say title label.text.append, and we can append a character. So that's going to be our letter. Now, if you run the code as it is right now, you'll see that it's actually not quite what you might expect to happen. The entire string appears almost as if it happened at exactly the same moment. So why is that? Well, it's because our computer is actually working really, really fast. And it doesn't take it any time at all to loop through the letters inside the title text. So it does it in less than a fraction of a second. So we can't actually see that animation of typing. So what do we have to do? Well, we could create a timer so that we add each letter after an incremental amount of time. So maybe the first letter gets added immediately. And then after 1/10 of a second or 0 0.1 seconds, we get it to show F. And then after 0.2 seconds, we get it to show L, and then A, and then SH, and then we end up with our typing animation. So how can we do this? Well, we can use our timer that we've seen previously in, for example, the egg timer lessons, and as well as other modules as well. We can get a hold of our timer and we can use schedule timer with time interval. The time interval I want to create is 0.1 seconds. And I'm going to set repeat to false. I only want it to run once. And then inside this block, once you've got it highlighted like this in blue, so if you don't, you can click away and then select it. It'll get highlighted and then hit enter. Now, once you've hit enter, we can go ahead and give this timer a name. We'll just call it timer with a lowercase t. And then the part where it says code is going to be the code that's going to be triggered after this time interval. So that is, of course, appending our letter. Now, you're going to get an error saying that the title label needs to be clearly marked with self because we are, of course, inside a closure denoted by this syntax that you should have seen before. And if you don't remember what closures are, then be sure to review the session on closures inside the Klima module. Now, if we run our app as it is right now, it's still not going to behave the way you think it should behave. And everything actually still appears on screen at the same time. So what's going on here? Well, what happens in this for loop is for every letter in the title text, it schedules a timer that waits for 0.1 of a second, and then it adds the letter to our title label text. But unfortunately, we're setting up as many timers as there are letters in our title text. So the first timer is set for this emoji, the second timer is set for the F letter, and then for the L letter, etc. But all of these timers got started pretty much at the same time. So in order to fix this, we have to change the time interval so that it takes into account a delay for every subsequent letter. So we can do that by creating a variable. Let's call it character index, and we'll start it with 0. And then inside the for loop, we're going to add 1 to the character index. Now, if I go ahead and print the character index, as well as the letter that we're currently on in our loop, if I hit run, you'll see that the first time the loop ran, the character index was 0, and my letter is this lightning emoji. The second time the loop was run, the character index gets increased by 1 in the last loop, so now it's equal to 1, and the letter we're now on to is F. So what we can do here is we can use this character index to multiply the time interval. So if we had 0.1 times 0, it's still 0. So the first timer happens immediately. And then 0.1 times 1 is going to be a delay of 0.1 seconds. 0.1 times 2 is a delay of 0.2 seconds. Now we can delay each letter by 0.1 of a second so that they appear incrementally after each other. Now we're getting an error here saying that you can't multiply a double by an integer. So how can we fix this? Well, we could, in fact, change this into a double by casting it like so. Alternatively, you can simply turn this character index into a double by writing 0.0. And you'll notice that if you check this now, it has turned its data type into a double. Both of these options work to remove that error. And now what I want to show you is I'm going to print the value of 0.1 times the character index, and then I'm going to print the letter. And I'm also going to add a line just in between to show you when each time the loop has run. So now if I hit run, you can see that the first time the loop is run, the 0.1 times 0 is, of course, 0. So we've scheduled a timer with 0-second delay to print this character. Next time the loop is run, zero point 0.0 times 1 is 0.1. So we've scheduled a timer to be delayed by 0.1 seconds to print the letter F, and then so on and so forth. So now when you run the app and you look at it, you can see that it prints out this typing animation by looping through each of the letters in our title text and adding them on after 0.1 second delay each time. And there are other ways of doing this animation. There's actually lots of other ways that I can think of. And the reason why we chose this is because I wanted to talk about loops. And if you've never come across this concept of loops and looping in programming, then I really urge you to head over to the next lesson where we're going to be doing a deep dive on loops and specifically look at the for-in loops as well as the while loops that exist in Swift. So for all of that and more, I'll see you there.